Hello, welcome back to Reading with Mo and Bittersweet, my final bookshelf spotlight tour. This has been a long time coming. This project has taken me like over a year now. It's been a lot of fun doing all of these deep dives with you guys into my bookshelves. I have a playlist with all of the videos in this series put together, so if you've missed any or if this is your first time maybe coming across one of these, you can go back and watch the others that show my current shelf collection, really, my current book collection, and this is my last one. So I have this small 3-shelf bookcase to the side of my 2 Billy bookcases. I think I picked this up at like Walmart or something when I moved into this apartment because I quickly ran out of space in my Billy bookcases for all my books. So this bookcase contains the majority of my books that are part of a series. Not all of my series live on this shelf. There's just not enough room right now for them to. I do have a few sprinkled throughout the rest of my shelves that you guys would have seen in past videos, but the majority of the series that I own are on this shelf. Eventually, I would like to, when I reorganize everything, use this small bookshelf to contain all of my books that are on my TBR, but currently I have too many that they would not even fit on this little bookshelf, so I don't have plans for that just yet. So let's get into my book series. I'll show you guys which ones I have read, which ones I haven't, kind of my general thoughts on the series without any spoilers. So let's go ahead and just start at the top shelf, which would make the most sense, and we'll start off with this Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. I purchased this set from, yes, these are Fairy Loot special signed editions of the trilogy. This is a young adult fantasy trilogy. I really enjoyed it. These are the spines all together make up Caraval, the name of the series, and then they all have the same red sprayed edges. I did enjoy reading the series. It's one I could see myself potentially wanting to revisit again in the future. I don't know if I necessarily am going to keep these on my shelves though, but I think they're really pretty underneath the dust jackets. I will go ahead and show you what they look like. So I'll actually just take all of the dust jackets off first. So this is what they look like without the dust jackets on. Honestly, I think they look even prettier as just naked hardcovers. I am debating on potentially selling this series. I may read it again in the future, but right now I just need money for a car. I'm currently carless, so I seen that these are going for a pretty good price online used right now because they are special editions. So I am thinking about potentially selling this and my Red Rising series that are both from Fairy Loot. They were not cheap to begin with when I bought them, but they are selling for a pretty expensive price online right now. So I'm thinking of selling both of those because I need to raise some money up for a down payment on a car. So I think if I could get some money from these, I may end up just unhauling them. I can always reread the books again in the future. I don't have to have them on my shelves. A car right now is my #1 priority. But anyway, back to the books. This has all 3 of the books in the series. We have Caraval, Legendary, and Finale. So I may not reread these again in the future. We'll see, but I did enjoy them. I don't really read a lot of young adult books anymore, but I remember I did enjoy these. I'll also keep track of which ones I have and haven't read and let you guys know like the percentages at the end. Next we have the Dune series, and I have completed this series. There are 6 books in the series. This one is the Barnes & Noble edition. It's really beautiful. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to read it before the movie came out, and then I realized that the movie is only like the first half of the first book in the series. So I didn't really have to, I guess, if I didn't want to, but I really loved the design on this. I enjoyed Dune probably the best of all of them. The writing was a little bit dense for me in this science fiction series. I made my way through it more so because I just wanted to experience the series for itself, not necessarily because I loved the series. So I am thinking of potentially unhauling the rest of the books in the series. So the rest of the books we have are Messiah, Children of Dune, Heretics of Dune, Chapter House, and God Emperor of Dune. This is not in the order that you're supposed to read them. This is just the order I'm holding them up. And they're all in these mass market paperbacks, except for this one randomly is like larger than the rest. The next series we have is from Jane Harper, and that's the, I don't know if there's an actual name for this series, but where they all follow the same detective, Aaron Falk. It's an adult police crime thriller series because we're following our main character as a detective, and these all take place in Australia, I think it was. I really enjoyed these. I don't have the third one. The third one came out, I want to say earlier this year, and I just got that as an audiobook from my library. Probably eventually I will get the physical book to add to my shelves, but it's not really one that's like super high priority. I do eventually really want to reread the first two books in the series. I kind of wish I had reread it before going into the third book, but you don't have to. Each of them can work as a standalone. So the next part of this shelf are a lot of Leigh Bardugo books. I don't have all of them right here. Some of them you'll see further on in this tour. And the first one is Six of Crows. These are collector's editions. I don't even remember where I got these from. Maybe Target. But they are very beautiful hardcover, naked hardcovers. This is Six of Crows, has the red and black foiling. And then Crooked Kingdom has the black and gold foiling. And they both have colored spines, which this one's red and this one's black. I have read both of these, I think twice at least. I remember I really love Six of Crows. Crooked Kingdom I did not enjoy as much as Six of Crows. And then we have this kind of like standalone book attached to the series of fairy tales related to the universe, the Grishaverse, and that is Language of Thorns, Midnight Tales, and Dangerous Magic. This is also super beautiful. I think if I can remember right underneath the cover. Yeah, so this book has some black and gold foiling underneath. And this one is kind of just like some side stories that have to do with the world. And then we have the King of Scars duology. There's King of Scars and Rule of Wolves. I actually just finished watching the second season of it on Netflix. And I'll see, I think these ones also are pretty nice underneath the dust jackets as well. So underneath for King of Scars, this is the design. And then underneath Rule of Wolves, it's a similar design, but this one is in like a maroon color and silver. They are very nice. I'll probably eventually reread the series again, but I feel like I've consumed so much of it lately with the show that I don't really feel any desire or need to read the books. I read for the first time, I think actually a year or two ago, the Shadow and Bone series because I knew the Netflix adaptation was going to be coming out, so I kind of reread a lot of these semi-recently. Then we have another series. There's a lot of young adult books on this shelf series that I loved from like when I was younger. So this book series is a trilogy. It was called Kathy's Book, and it's what really drew me to falling in love with books in mixed media format when I was younger. This one got like super messed up when I was moving, but these I have had for forever. So the first one is Kathy's Book, and they're really cool because they take place in San Francisco, and it's like kind of told in a diary format. This is the book itself, and then there's like different little illustrations and doodles and drawings. This is her diary. And there's all this like it's falling apart now because it's so old, but there's like these mixed media items that go along with the story, and I've just always loved this so much, and I wish that I was able to find another series. I've never been able to find another series as like this, and it's very unique. I've looked before and I've never found anything else like it. So then this was the sequel, Kathy's Ring, and similar, you have inside her diary, and then it's the same where it has like little doodles throughout the whole diary, and there are actual like mixed media items, even like this little like ring and stuff that go along with the story. I really need to reread these. It's been so long. And then there's Kathy's Key, which is, I think this one was the final one, but same where it has like all the little mixed media items and her diary as well with the doodles. I remember looking up, I haven't looked up recently, but I know looking up, seeing if like the author had written anything else after this, and I wasn't able to find anything. So I don't know if this was like a one-time project or something, but it was so cool. This concept is so cool. I really need somebody else to create something like this. Next series we'll go into is a very small, slim series with these novellas by Elie Wiesel. We have Dawn, Night, and Day. I think Night was actually the first one, but I can't remember now. These are books in translation. This series has to do around with the Nazi death camps and just set during like the Holocaust. Very sad. And I've read, I think, Night a couple of times. It's been a while since I think I've only read the following sequels to it once, but it's a series that I definitely would be interested in revisiting again in the future. Okay, continuing on, we have a duology, and that is by Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. I really enjoyed this series when I read it. Octavia Butler is just such an awesome writer. Kindred is one of my favorite books of all time. This series was just so good, like science fiction category, dystopian, crazy that she wrote it like, I don't even know how many years ago it was. I think it was like 20-ish years ago, like in the 90s or something like that. And how much of the stuff that she wrote in this book is so similar to present day is crazy. I'm really sad that I guess this was supposed to be a trilogy and she unfortunately was never able to complete it in her lifetime. I really would have loved to have another book in the series, but even just with the two books standing alone, they're still really good. Next, we have a very well-beloved series here on BookTube and in the world in general, and that is the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins, a very popular young adult dystopian series. I actually reread these during the pandemic when I was stuck at home. I wanted to see if they kind of like lived up to the hype still, and I rewatched all the movies, and I actually really did enjoy these books. I feel like just as much, or maybe almost just as much as when I first read them when I was a teenager, which was really a surprising to me and a happy surprise, because you just never know rereading like your favorites when you're younger if they're gonna hold up to your current reading taste or not. I really enjoyed them, easy to read. I went ahead and read the latest installment in the Hunger Games world, the prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I didn't enjoy it as much as the original trilogy, that's for sure, but I don't think it was like horrible. I am interested in seeing if maybe Suzanne Collins comes out with anything else written in the same world. I'll definitely be watching the movie when it comes out. I think they announced in like November of this year, so we'll see how I feel about that. Definitely this one wasn't a favorite, but after all these years I kind of didn't even really expect it to be a favorite, to be honest. I purchased this edition specifically from Waterstones, and it has a really cool underneath dust jacket yellow hardcover with this cool snakes design on it. And then back to Leigh Bardugo, we have the Shadow and Bone series. I forget who publishes this one. It's Square Fish. I had to like get these online. These aren't the United States editions, but these were like the nicest editions that I wanted for my shelves I've seen. So yes, we have Shadow and Bone, the sequel, Ruin and Rising, and Siege and Storm. I feel like if I had read these back when I was in this demographic market age young adult, I would have loved these even more, probably just as much as like Hunger Games. But while I did enjoy them, I didn't enjoy them as much as I know I probably would have when I was younger. Then we have this mass market paperback edition of Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. I picked this up right before I was heading on a trip to, I think it's when I went to the Dominican Republic last year, and I wanted to read this book, but I didn't want to bring like my huge hardback of it when my space was very limited while I was traveling. I didn't even really need to. I only read like maybe a couple chapters that whole trip, so it wasn't really worth it, but I am going to keep both editions on my shelves just because, yeah, if I'm like traveling around with this book when I'm wanting to reread it again in the future, it'll be nice to have the smaller edition. I really enjoyed Fire and Blood. I think there's supposed to be like a sequel to this book as well in the future, which is also why I just like put it on my series bookshelf. But yes, 5 out of, I don't remember, I think I gave this 5 stars. Can't remember honestly, to be honest right now, but I love George R.R. Martin's writing, and I'm gonna read anything that he comes out with that's set in Westeros. Then we have a book that is the first book in a series called The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I just read this one I think about a month ago. It's part of a trilogy that I think may have even more books in the series. So far I have just this one. I need to pick up the other 2 books so I can continue on. The Catch Up Book Club here on YouTube is this is like the current series that they're reading, so I'm trying to keep up with that. So yeah, I'll be picking up the sequel to this probably within the next like month or so. This is another fantasy series. A lot of my series are fantasy or science fiction, which I feel like tend to be the genres that do have a lot of series. or at least ones that I'm interested in. But yeah, so far I am enjoying the series. So far I'm interested to see where it goes in the second one. Then we have a duology. This is a young adult contemporary genre. It's Art Boss and Piper Parrish. So these are the covers on these two. I read these a few years ago. I remember really enjoying them. We're following our main character. Her name is Piper, and she's an artist. I believe she was like just graduating out of high school, so this is kind of the branching into new adults as a genre, I would say, because we're following her going through college and kind of just like figuring out things for herself, where she wants to do now that she's out of school. I feel like at the time, especially when I read it, her being into art and stuff, I could relate to the main character in a lot of different ways, and I will definitely be interested in rereading this duology again in the future. Then we have a book series as part of a trilogy. Actually, I just finished this as of recording this month. This trilogy is by Jane Allen. It is a contemporary fiction adult trilogy. The first one is Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. Then we have Black Girls Must Be Magic and Black Girls Must Have It All. Moment of appreciation for how beautiful the covers on these are. I really love them. I actually did listen to most of these with the audiobook, or I would like kind of go back and forth with them. They're very short, easy to get through, easy to listen to. The story itself isn't like super complicated or dense. It's very easy to follow along with. I enjoyed our main character Tabitha. She in the beginning is going through like a harder time. She's getting to a point in her life where she feels like she should have her life together as far as like marriage and kids and job. She feels like she doesn't have any of that together, on top of the fact that she has a limited amount of time when she's going to be able to have kids, which kind of like sets off the first book, and we continue on with that storyline as long as others throughout the rest of the trilogy. I did enjoy it. So I read the first two books twice actually, because I was anticipating once when they first came out, each of them, and then once in April when I was anticipating the third one coming out, and I didn't even need to reread them. I feel like the third book had so much what's the word I'm looking for? They like kind of rehashed a lot of the stuff that happened in the first two books almost too much, where I felt like it was a lot of the third book was just a lot of summary of what was happening in the first two and not as much of its own plot. I don't feel like it was a super strong ending to the trilogy in my personal opinion, but I still really enjoyed the series. I wouldn't like not recommend it or anything, but I don't feel like I am going to read it again. I feel like reading through it twice was good enough for me. Oh, and also with this series, I remember I just learned a couple weeks ago they're actually adapting this into a series for TV. So if it's a series that you feel like you're interested in, I would recommend probably reading the books before watching the series. I don't know, I have a feeling I'm gonna really enjoy the series even more than the books. I'm really interested to see who they cast as the actors for each of these characters, so yeah, I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for some more updates on that. Then we have another series by Octavia Butler, and this one is the Lilith's Brood series. Beautiful covers on these ones. So the first one I think was, I don't even remember honestly the order that they were now at this point, but here's the covers on them. So Imago, Dawn, and Adulthood Rights. This is a science fiction series, and it takes place after this like nuclear war, and it has to do with like this other alien species kind of helping Earth to continue on and survive. It's kind of weird, but I like it. Octavia Butler's books are kind of on the weirder side, I guess, sometimes, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. Everything I've read by Octavia Butler I have loved. Then we have another fantasy series, and this is by Marie Brennan. The first one was A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent. We are following, the memoirs of this made-up woman who is into studying the history of dragons, and we follow her journeys throughout the rest of the books. The series is definitely not for everyone. I know some people who read it have complained like that there wasn't enough dragons in it, I guess, but for me, I feel like it was a good amount. It was very like historical literary type, but with fantasy mixed in, and I really enjoyed it. The other books in the series are A Tropic of Serpents, we have Voyage of the Basilisk, In the Labyrinth of Drakes, Within the Sanctuary of Wings, and Turning Darkness into Light. I pretty much binged these back to back when I read this series. It's definitely one I want to revisit again within the next few years. And I should definitely look into other books by this author because I haven't really done that. I've been doing pretty well over the last few months picking up books throughout the last year that have been on the shelf, so there really aren't a lot of books that are currently on this that I haven't read. I know all the ones I've shown you guys so far are books that I have read. So with all the second shelf back where they belong, we can go on to the third and final shelf. So we'll start over here first and make our way over, because actually some of these are double stacked on this last shelf because I ran out of room. The book I want to show you guys first is a middle grade book, and I really don't read a lot of middle grade books, but I picked up this one and I really enjoyed it. If you're into books about books, if you like are familiar with a lot of different classic books, we see characters in this book series. So this is by Anna James. I believe there's like 2 or 3 other books in the series. I still need to pick them up so I can read them myself. I'll probably reread this first one before I get to the others. I haven't really prioritized them because I know the author is still releasing books in the series, so I kind of just want to wait until the series is done or nearly done, and then I'll go ahead and read them. Like, I'm not in a rush. In this book, we are following 11-year-old Tilly, and she, her mother disappeared, so she lives with her grandparents, and they own this bookshop called Pages & Co. She is an avid reader herself, which I can definitely relate to, and what happens is, like, her favorite characters in books like Anne from Anne of Green Gables, Alice from Alice in Wonderland, they start showing up at the shop, and she gets into all sorts of adventures from there. And this was a very fun whimsical story. I am looking forward to eventually, continuing on with this series. Then we have another trilogy, and this is by N.K. Jemisin, and this is the Broken Earth series. So it's the 5th season, The Obelisk Gate, and The Stone Sky. These were my first books, I think, that I completed from N.K. Jemisin. I love this trilogy so much. I cannot wait to get back into rereading this again. I think the 5th season is actually getting an adaptation. This is a fantasy series. I don't really want to say too much going into it. It's just like so good. It was so good. And if you're into fantasy, I feel like you will definitely like this. And me, who doesn't read a ton of fantasy, although my series shelves would probably beg to differ, I really enjoyed this, and I read this a few years ago, so especially at that time I had not read hardly any fantasy. So next, finally onto a series that I haven't read, or I have some progress to make in, is the Noughts and Crosses series by Mallory Blackman. This is a young adult series. I purchased these all from Waterstones, I believe. They had them in these cool special editions where like all of the edges are sprayed. I feel like if I had read this when I was in the age demographic these are marketed to young adults, I would have really enjoyed it. I did like them, the first book that I read, but it wasn't like so compelling that I felt like I had to immediately keep going with the rest of the series. So now it's been a while and I haven't continued on, which I need to decide if I'm going to continue on or not soon, or else if not, like, these books are taking up a lot of shelf space right now. I did watch the adaptation for Noughts and Crosses that was on TV. I don't even remember which streaming platform I got it through, but I remember watching that and enjoying it. And there's like more books in this series. The basic premise is we're following society and people are divided into 2 sides, Noughts and Crosses. We're following our main characters, Seffi and Callum. They've been friends since childhood, but each are kind of meant to be more so enemies because they come from each side. There's a lot of prejudice and fear in the world that they live in. I am definitely going to give this series another chance and continue on with it. So I'll show you guys the rest of the books. I know not all of them follow, I think, the main character. I think eventually it goes on to follow other people in this world. So not even in any particular order. We have Double Cross, Knife Edge, Checkmate, and Crossfire. And they had sent me this little book. They said, here's a freebie to go with the rest of the series. When I had placed this order, I guess, because I bought these all at once, so they seen I was buying this. And I guess for Free World Book Day, this was a book that was published for that. And the name on this one is Not Forever. It's just this tiny little novella. It's like, I don't even know, less than 100 pages. So yes, this series is one I need to make some progress on soon and decide if I'm going to continue on or not. Next, we have a couple of graphic novel series, which are not something I really dabble too much in, but they're, every once in a while I find ones I do like. So the first one is a trilogy. I only own the first one. I still need to buy the second 2 so I can continue on. At this point, I'm going to have to reread the first one, and that's March, Book 1 by John Lewis, Andrew Aiden, and Nate Powell. This is a non-fiction graphic novel trilogy. So here's some of the illustrations, taking an idea of what they look like. And these follow Congressman John Lewis, who is an American icon and one of the key figures of the civil rights movement. So in book 1, we're following him through his childhood. The other graphic novel I have is a manga, and that is The Sailor Moon, and this is volume 1, I believe. The Eternal editions, and I'll give you a look of what the inside looks like. As a kid, I really definitely was into Sailor Moon. Like, I wasn't super into it, but I watched the cartoon and stuff, and I thought it would be fun to read the mangas that the cartoons are based on. I've had this for so long and I have not read it yet. I know there's like at least 6, I think, in the series. I'm not gonna buy any more though until I actually read this one and see if I want to continue on with the rest, or I may just leave this as the only one on my shelves. And then the last book, I think, before we go into the last books that are all part of this same series, is the first book in another trilogy. It's called The Lives of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I have not read this one yet, but I also kind of don't want to read it until I kind of finish I want to finish the Joe Abercrombie series first. I don't want to have like 2, I think these are both fantasy. I don't want to have 2 fantasy series going at the same time, so I'll go ahead and pick up this trilogy once I finish. I don't even know what the series is called, but yeah, book 1 of The Blade itself. Now, last but not least, we have the longest series that I have ever read in my life and probably am ever going to, and that is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I have read all 16 books in this series, and yes, it did take a long time to get through them, but the catch-up book club was going through reading all these. I didn't read them at the same time as they were. I had to catch up a lot, and they finished the series before I did, but I went back and like watched all the live shows and stuff. So I'll go ahead and start with the beginning. So even though these are 16 books, they're divided into kind of like sub-series. So like the first trilogy, we're following one main character pretty much like through his youth, and that is the Assassin's Apprentice series, I think this one was called. So the first 3 I got in these nice editions that are hardcovers. The rest of them are all paperback. So these are the illustrated editions. So I'll show you, like, this is Assassin's Apprentice here, and inside there's like a map, and throughout the book there are illustrations. Let me find one. There's not like a lot, but there are a few different illustrations throughout the book. This is a fantasy series. I don't remember if I mentioned that already before. So yeah, that was Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest make up this first trilogy of the 16. So yeah, that one was the Farseer trilogy. I got the name on that one wrong. So then we go on to the next trilogy, which is the Live Ship Traders series. And in this series, which is these 3 books here, we follow a cast of different characters. So unlike the first series where we're following just one perspective, in this series we're following a whole bunch of different perspectives, which was a refreshing change. And so this one, there's Ship of Magic, the Mad Ship, Ship of Destiny. Then we go on to the next trilogy, which is the Tawny Man trilogy, and that was these 3 here. So we have Fool's Errand, which was book 1, book 2 was The Golden Fool, and book 3 was Fool's Fate. And with this book, we're back to following just the one perspective. We're back with Fitz again, who was our main character from the first trilogy. Then after that, there's the Rainwild Chronicles, which is a quartet of books where there's Dragon Keeper, Dragon Haven, City of Dragons, and Blood of Dragons. And this quartet goes back to following multiple different perspectives again. And then last but not least, we have the final trilogy of the entire series, and this one's the Fitz and the Fool series. And this one is Fool's Assassin, Fool's Quest, and Assassin's Fate. So this is a very long series. We follow our main characters through a lot of their lives. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I would ever, at this point in time, I don't know if I ever have plans to reread the series in its entirety. Maybe also because I just finished the series, so like ask me again in a few years. I definitely for sure, I feel like I want to reread go back and reread the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy, and maybe even the Live Ship Traders series, but will I continue with all 16? I have no idea at this point. So altogether, between these 3 shelves, there are 76 books on this bookshelf. So this is probably going to end up being like the longest of the series of videos, the longest in length of video, because there's just so many books that I talked through with you guys right now. Of those, I have only 10 that I haven't read, which is probably the best percentage of any shelf on the rest of my bookshelves. So I've read 86% of the books that are on my series shelves, which is a great percentage. I need to get the rest of my shelves together to look like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing all of the books that are on my series bookshelf. This has been such a fun project. Thanks for everyone who's been around for me for this whole project. I know it's, like I mentioned before, it's been over a year. So definitely look forward to within the next month of me reorganizing all my bookshelves. I am not doing a shelf by shelf tour or anything like that as in depth. I mean, you guys can go back through and see those are all the books that I have, but I am going to be doing a book unhaul, and I'm going to be moving my bookshelves potentially to a different part of my room, and I want to create like a book nook in my room. I've always wanted something like that in my place. I just didn't think I had really the space, but I'm kind of thinking I can maybe figure it out. If I get rid of some of my books, I think I could do it and have it not look like too cluttered in the corner that I'm planning on putting it in. So we'll see how that goes. You're gonna have to subscribe and stick around to see how that goes. I don't even know myself how it's gonna turn out. So I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.